This week, we're talking about screen time, which when we think about finding balance is a hot topic because we are surrounded by screens nonstop. And how do you build a balanced family that's functional in a modern world, but you don't allow screens to dominate your life, right? We're going to jump into that and we're going to share some of our personal journey inside of this and just what screen time looks like in our home today. Let's jump into it. This is the Balanced Family Podcast with Ben
and Jessica. There's a lot to balance when you have a family: marriage, kids, health, career, while you're trying to balance all the opinions out there on how to do things right.
Today, we'll cut through the noise, tackle hard questions, and share stories as we try to get to the heart of the things that really matter. Okay, so last weekend, we were in Dallas.
Yeah, we went to Dallas with some friends.
Which was super fun. No kids.
Fun. Yes.
And we did fun, youthful things like a virtual reality lounge.
Yeah.
And what was that place? The other
Activate.
place? Activate.
Games. So it was
How would you describe that?
It's really hard to describe. It's games with lights. I don't even know.
It's like, yeah.
So like one of the games, let me give you an example. One of the games is there's a grid of lights on the floor and the green lights are safe. The blue lights you're trying to like step on or push a button.
Yeah, they're buttons on the walls.
Yeah. So you're trying to get rid of the blue. And the red is bad. So you're trying to avoid the red. And so there's like these lights that are like changing and the red is moving. And you're essentially like running around the place trying to get the blue lights off and then you all have to get on the green lights to like end that turn once you do it. And so that was one of the games.
Well, it was a lot of games that were very active, like physically active.
Yeah, I was exhausted.
But yeah, no,
it was
I was
awesome,
getting sweaty.
though.
But it used technology. Like there's one that's like a laser light. Like you're like a spy and you're like dodging these lasers.
All these lasers. We were not very good at that one.
No, that was
we were a little old.
It was kind of hard to see it.
Yeah,
like it needed like haze or something like that.
Well, and then so the VR one though, that like you have on an actual VR mask and headphones, and we had a gun.
Yeah.
And we were in a complete virtual reality world.
In a big warehouse.
It was a huge warehouse, and we were killing zombies.
Yeah.
Because that's what you do, I guess, it was like a immersive video game, essentially. And that one was so wild.
That was wild. And we have virtual reality lounges here in Northwest Arkansas, but they're like, baby, we're old. Like we don't get out much anymore.
That like, what are they like that though?
They're not like that. They're like small rooms and you stay in one place. Kind of like if you were to have a headset at home or something.
Your own, yeah.
But we'd never been to one. It's like a huge warehouse where you can walk around. You couldn't run. It was against the rules, which is unfortunate.
I definitely speed walked at one point. So
yeah, I was speed walking.
Because, when you're being chased by zombies, you have like, so there was this one point, just a little side note, when you're in the game and you have to walk on this like really thin, narrow strip of metal across this abyss. So in the VR set, I like look down and like I felt like I was going to fall off a cliff. I mean, it was so deep. It felt real. Like my body had that same response that you would if you were on a cliff looking down, but I had to walk. So it's like, in your brain that you're in a warehouse and it's not real, but like I was like walking, like, just like foot after foot, trying to balance and not fall off this cliff. Anyway, it was such a strange sensation.
It was pretty crazy. And we're going somewhere with all this, by the way. But man, the VR thing was cool. One funny thing was your character. So Jessica's not a tall person.
I'm 5'0". If you do not know, I'm a shouty.
Yeah. And we're in this world, and walking around, and Jessica's character looked like he was squatting the whole time. And I was like
walking, squatting.
Like with his knees like bent like a 45-degree angle the entire time. And I was like, Jessica, why are you squatting? She's like, I'm not. I'm just short. So like the VR system like detected her height and thought it was a grown man like squatting. And so you're just like hobbling around in this VR world.
But listen, I almost beat you in the killing of zombies.
Almost is key. almost key. I was
he was very proud. He was like, I saved you. And I was like, no, you did not. I was really good.
It was fun.
Admit it.
It was fun. Yeah, you were really good. I think the worst part was taking off that headset and and I had the worst stinky, sweaty, mildewy smell on my face.
It was pretty bad.
I almost freaked out. I had to go to the bathroom and wash my face. It was stinky. So,
all right,
well, the question I was going to ask Jessica, getting to like screen times, technology, which did you like more from last weekend, Activate or the VR?
Definitely VR.
Really? Mm-hmm. You liked it more?
I did. It brought me back to in high school when I would play Halo with the boys. I was like one of those girls who like went and like played Halo, like because back then
people may not even know what Halo is.
So like back then you had to have multiple game sets like Xboxes that
system link.
Yeah, you would system link them. So we had screens in like tons of different rooms, and everyone would be playing together.
As in TVs.
Yeah, like that's what I mean. Like literally like TVs, big TVs. And so I would, and the guys would just like play this for hours. And so sometimes I would go over and I would play Halo with them, and it was really fun. And it brought me back to that a bit. And I actually had a blast.
Yeah.
Like just video gaming. We just don't do that very often. So it was fun to me. What about you?
Well, that's what's funny is that I actually had the opposite experience because I grew up playing so many video games and just being a guy and just doing that a lot. The Activate thing was like more of a novelty to me. The VR experience was neat, of course. It was so immersive. But yeah, I thought Activate was pretty awesome because it was kind of techie, but you also got exercise. And I liked just the interaction with our friends.
That was fun.
And working as a team and stuff like that. It felt like you were in like a reality show, So that was a pretty cool experience. You talking about system link though, man, that brings me back to so many memories, just how much technology's changed. Like right now, online gaming is like normal, but I remember back then, like nobody had a fast enough internet for online gaming. And so system link was like a big deal, and you could link up to 4 Xboxes,
right?
Which I had only experienced on a handful of times because like it was just hard to get that many people together. But then you could have 16 people in a game. That was pretty epic. But man, technology has changed a lot. And like with just the internet and internet-based technology being so necessary for like everything in our lives, I mean, it's just everywhere. And even TV. I mean, you think about how much TV has changed. And we sound like old fogies even talking about it because like our parents have been through not only all the technological changes that we've experienced, but even in their day. I mean, I remember my dad telling me about the first time he saw color television.
Wow.
And he's lived now through all the things that we've seen. But man, technology has changed a lot. And it's funny because our kids will make fun of us. Our oldest, she's old enough to be all sarcastic and make sarcastic jokes and make fun of our age. It's, whenever I try to tell her about just like the internet and like dial up and when we were kids and how you couldn't talk on the phone and stuff like that. I mean, it's like telling somebody about like stone tools and caveman stuff. She's just like, that's crazy, and how nobody had cell phones. And a lot has changed though.
All right. Well, we're going to talk about screen time.
Yeah.
And I think, so maybe we could start with just how we approached screen time with our kids in general. And because like we began to be parents around the time that screen time became like a really hot topic I feel like even one of the pediatrician major people, whatever, one of the major groups, I can't think of the name right now, Academy of Pediatric Doctors came out with like a recommended amount of time per day for, that was like when I became a mom, was when that first started like coming out. And I remember there was just a lot of pressure and a lot of conversation around like how horrible screens were for your kids. Right. And so I definitely found myself, I don't know, just trying to navigate that, because I think many moms of toddlers especially understand this. When you have a toddler, and especially when then you have multiple kids who are under the age of 4, for example, and you're trying to breastfeed your newborn and you're trying to whatever. Or also having, for example, when I had my third, my oldest was done napping. So it's like, what do you do then? Like you literally never get a break. So I remember really feeling very torn about the screen time thing, because screen time was such a tool for me to get to like just take a second to do the things that I needed to do, like make dinner or, the witching hour at night. That was always like prime time for screen time, because if I didn't, I don't know how we would have eaten dinner that night, you know? And so, but I felt an immense amount of guilt and kind of trepidation about that because of all of the voices coming at me saying just how horrible. It was like, basically, it felt like I was like giving my kids drugs. It was like kind of how it felt,
Right.
And that was just a really wild thing. And I feel like that hasn't really changed. Like everything that I hear from moms. If not, it's worse. Yeah. In some ways it's worse, because now not only do you have the anti-screen time messaging, but then you also have a ton of messaging about playing with your babies and like developmental stuff, and how you have to have them do tummy time X amount of hours a day. And you need to, interact with them in this way to help them develop. And I mean, like that must feel really stressful being a mom now, even more so than whenever I was a mom, because we didn't have that as much. Like with the Wonder Weeks and like the developmental milestones were really kind of becoming more like quote mainstream when I was becoming a mom. So I just kind of like, I would go to the doctor, they would do like the developmental check, and like my girls were always progressing well. And so it was kind of like cool. And I never did anything in particular besides maybe some tummy time. I do remember doing that.
Absolutely.
But like, the black and white books, and do you know about those?
No.
Yeah. So there's like this whole thing of like, you show newborns black and white books because it is really engaging and helps them, I don't even know, develop things. I like literally, I don't know. There. Yeah. So
man, anyway. Just coming from an educational research background and just the study on children's minds and stuff, like so much is really theory than evidence-based. But anyway, that's a side note. This whole idea of balance is interesting because there's obviously one extreme that we're not even going to talk about that much, because I don't think people listening to this podcast fit into this, but where there are people that just put their kids in front of screens 24/7 and like literally don't parent and don't care and whatever, or there's other reasons.
There's like 6 months old looking at cell phones and
or
you're
or younger. And it's like, we like there is that extreme, and but most parents fall somewhere in the middle, which is they try to have some kind of balance. But I think what you're describing is like what we talk about a lot on the show, is just the anxiety that our hyper aware culture is about just everything. And when I was trying to think about our childhood and like the quote unquote dangers of like watching too much TV,
I'm laughing
because there wasn't much. But if you think about it, it was kind of like, don't sit on the couch and get fat and eat potato chips and watch too much TV. Like that was kind of more of.
Or no, the big thing was don't sit too close to the TV.
That was
dude. My mom would be like, "You're gonna burn out your eyes." I don't know if my mom said that, but I knew
terrified.
That.
I remember like my parents telling me not to sit too close to the TV when I was young. I still to this day do not sit too close to the TV. Well, and
you get onto our kids sometimes for sitting too close to the TV. It's so funny.
Because it makes sense. I don't know if it's actually research, but it just makes sense.
Yeah, because one of our girls went through a phase where she was really interested in like being like, if you're on camera, you can see me like being like right here against the TV. It was like, oh.
Well, anyway, like those were the dangers. Now there's the dangers of what you're talking about, which is like attention deficit and different cognitive developments and social. I mean, the social ramifications with social media, which a lot of that research is pretty legit. Like, and that's social media is like a whole nother side of this thing when you get talking about older kids. But it's also, I feel like a lot of that stuff is good. And this is the struggle of trying to be a balanced family, is like,
it feels conflicting.
It's conflicting because you're actually like, this is a noble pursuit. Like humans for gazillions of years haven't lived with these devices. And now we're putting our kids in front of them like nonstop. Like logic tells you like that can't be good. And there's so much more value in interacting with the natural world and just like real things. Same thing with like real relationships. And that it's like those are noble pursuits. Also, I know whenever I watch different children's shows, like a lot of them are super fast paced and lots of stimuli, and I just know, I don't even have a degree in the brain development. I just know like that's probably not good for a super young kid to be exposed to that fast stimuli just like nonstop, which is why I don't think it's great that kids are scrolling TikTok all the time. And
at like age 9 and 10, which is wild too.
Yeah. And it's, you know, I've watched kids there. I mean, I've seen kids on a TikTok feed and it was, you know, clean content or whatever, but just that, I just was wondering like, what's that doing to a kid's brain just to be like, and just like going through videos like crazy.
Because when we were kids,
the addictiveness of that.
Like when we were kids, like I remember watching TV for many hours, and I know you did too. You know, I mean, like, you know, after school, it's like you would
probably play video games more than I watch.
That's
TV.
Probably true. Well, you know, there's nothing like having to, because back then there was nothing on demand. Mm-hmm. So it's like if you didn't like a show, you could channel surf some, but like you had to wait. You had to wait until that show was done. And I remember, you know, like having to watch, especially when I was older, you know, like Rugrats or Hey Arnold. Some of the shows that I liked less to be able to get to the shows that I really wanted to see, you know, just there was a lot of delayed gratification, a little bit more so than like you're saying now. It's like you can just flip through, and even Bluey. It's interesting that Bluey has such short episodes. It almost is kind of like mimicking the short attention spans.
You really think so?
I mean,
I'll
the episodes are like 5 to 7 minutes long.
It's funny you said that. I thought the strategy was actually to be less immersive or fun.
I'm just throwing that
out
knows,
there.
But I mean, it's just interesting. I think
our kids will watch multiple Blueys.
Yeah, I'm not even really making a comment. I'm just saying it's just interesting. Obviously, they've tapped into something there. Like there's a reason why they're doing that, right? And I don't know. Maybe it's for good reasons.
Okay, not to nerd out on this, but if you remember when we were kids, the shows actually were like 10 to 15, and they had 2 of them in a 30-minute.
Oh.
So maybe it's like a thing with kids' brains that they can't handle a plot
that's like too long.
That the arc has to be pretty quick.
I forgot about that. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
anyway,
screen time. I think, you know, so let's just kind of talk. So, you know, I know they recommend under the age of 2. No more than, I think, maybe like an hour of screen time. I can't remember what the most recent recommendation is, but I can tell you right now, as a mom of 3, I absolutely had my kids watch more than an hour of screen time when they were little. And we have on our notes to talk about the changes over time. I will say that our kids watched more screens when they were younger than they do now.
Absolutely.
Like significantly. And part of that was just like practical. Like it wasn't any kind of philosophy. Right. It was just simply, I have to do blank right now, and I don't have an option. And so I'm going to have you watch a show, you know? And that was part of it. But I think you and I were very intentional to not continue that as they got older. So as they got older, we started pulling back more on screen time very intentionally, saying, okay, well, you can watch one show today. And I mean, it's very common for our girls to only watch like one show. Sometimes we'll have entire
no screens.
Days or multiple days with no screens on purpose. And do our girls protest? Of course they do. But we're the parents. And so we're like, yeah, you know, you can do this or you can do that. You know, we have a long list of things that they can do. And they end up having a blast.
Oh yeah,
they don't miss it. You know, at least as far as I know. So
no, we've always been super intentional, and I would say we've all, even younger, like you're saying, we use it as a tool, and it wasn't a tool to for us just to be able to relax all day, like you're saying. It was like we had to get stuff done. And you painted us like we were just sitting our little toddlers in front of the screen all day. That's not true. But we probably went past all the quote unquote recommendations. But even as they got older, we used screen time as incentives and we use that to teach our values. And so one of our values in our home that we talk a lot about is work hard, play hard. And so, that work part comes first. And so like we never, even to this day, like no TV gets turned on until like everything's clean. The house is clean. Rooms are clean. And to us, that is a value where it's like you prioritize your responsibilities. And then when you're done with everything, like, yeah, you have free time. And that not only teaches them like a prioritization, it actually makes them clean pretty quick.
Yeah, and they get it done.
And it's not that we always have TV used as a reward. That's not the point. But a lot of times we do. And I wouldn't even call it a reward. It's more just like a system. It's like a priority list of how we do things in our home. And
well, it's not even just chores. They also will have reading time.
Yeah,
we do a lot of different.
And we actually purposely, and this whole podcast is not like this is the right way to do it. This is about how we found balance. But one thing we also do is we purposely do not make screen time predictable. Meaning we might say one night, hey guys, it's a really nice night. Like, let's go make a fire in the backyard. We're gonna no TV. And we actually do that quite often. There's actually, I would say, a lot of days, a lot of evenings, there's no screen time. And it really works well for our kids developmentally right now too, because the imaginative play is a big deal. And they can get more immersed in their imaginative play than a show. Mm-hmm. And that's pretty awesome to see as a parent, like 2 hours go by and they've been playing and they didn't even realize how much time they've been spending. But it is tough when your kids are super young.
Yeah, I want to go back to that because, I know you were at work. Yeah. So I don't think you actually, maybe you're fully aware of life as a stay-at-home mom with multiple kids. And so I want to kind of go back to that because of course I wasn't just sitting the kids in front of the TV, but there were some for example, one of my second was colicky. Mm-hmm. So for that entire year, before I went back to work. So I went back to work that summer. So for about 6 months, especially, and then even then I only worked part-time. So I had a lot of afternoons where I still had like a little bit of work to do, but I wasn't at work. So I didn't have childcare. And so then on top of then having a colicky baby for a large part of that, and you guys know we've talked about, she actually wasn't well and we didn't know that. And we ended up figuring that out after that first year. There, like practically, it's like I have to do something with my 2-year-old. I don't know, she's not actually very into independent play and never has been, and was not an independent player back then. She was glued to my side, 24/7, and so that was a difficult time for me because I felt so much guilt about the screen time that I had to give her because I had to deal with a really fussy baby. And if I didn't, she would have been melting down. It was really tough. And so I think internally I was really just worried, like, oh, am I just going to ruin her? Mm-hmm. And she loved, I was purposeful in the shows that I chose. So she watched a lot of Daniel Tiger and Curious George. Those were the two back then that were hot stuff. And I really liked the PBS vibe. It was, slower. It had a lot of really good practical things. Like when I was potty training her, we still joke around with her and sing this song. If you have to go potty, stop and go right away. Yeah. Flush and wash and you're on your way. She loved that episode. So there was a lot of that kind of thing. But deep down, I really struggled with feeling a lot of guilt about that. Even though in my brain, I knew it was this is a tool. I practically, I don't know what else to do because I was already kind of at my max in terms of capacity to handle all the things at that point. And, I'm actually now looking back, I have a lot of compassion on myself for that because it was I was kind of surviving, and screen time was a tool that helped me be able to get through that time period. And so I don't know. I just want to say that to moms that maybe are in, you might be hearing how we do things now with our older kids, but there was a season when things were very different. And, I know we have a lot of moms of young kids who probably feel the same way as I did. And I just want to kind of release some pressure, I guess is what I'm saying about that, because you can feel a lot of pressure about doing everything right. But sometimes the best thing that you can do is to do what is most logical in that moment, and just recognize I don't know, it's really hard to mess up a kid. You know what I'm saying? I don't know if watching Curious George, I mean, we don't see any issues in that child who sat in front of you know what I'm saying?
Well, I don't know if I agree with that statement. I would say in this context, like, this is not going to screw up a kid because
that's what I mean.
You're going to have many years to steer the ship in other ways when we're talking about screen time. But it is a delicate balance, especially as they get older, because like you have to recognize how powerful just like media in general is. In the early days, like you're saying, it's like a management tool, and moms need to relieve pressure off themselves and understand like we did, you can change things, you know, later on. It's not a big deal. But what a major like danger, I think, in our society with screens, with media, is like lack of management. It can have like bad effects on kids, especially when you eventually like all this stuff kind of snowballs into the social media phase. Like true. Parents need to know like all roads lead to social media and smartphones, and like the addiction and like the power of that to affect mental health, like it's pretty clear. And so when your kids are younger, like kind of our ages, like you are teaching them boundaries. And when they're younger, like they can't self-regulate. So there has to be discussions about boundaries. Later on, when they're teenagers, that has to be a gradually released responsibility, because teenagers need to start learning how to put boundaries on themselves, because they're going to be adults very soon, and you don't want to just hand them the world and they, you know, have never interacted with it before. But when they're like school age and stuff, boundaries are important. Content filters are important. Managing internet access, like extremely important. Like it is baffling to me, like the freedom that some kids have and access to the internet. Like that is kind of scary.
And it's hard to navigate that when they have their own tablet or they have their own screen. I think that that's a slippery slope.
Exactly.
As a parent. And especially then if they also have their own tablet and they're allowed to take it to their bedroom, or they're allowed, you know what I mean? And I think those are things that, like you're saying, when kids are young, it's a management tool, but then it's like, if you're not intentional, then it can snowball into something. Cause then it's like, where do you stop? Right. Cause it's like, and I want to also bring up, there is some research about the difference between television watching and screen watching. Do you know about that?
Yeah.
Yeah. And just how the television watching essentially just has less of an effect on a brain.
It's not as addictive.
It's not as an
iPad stuff.
As an iPad.
The other thing I want to say is like, man, this is such a nuanced topic. Another thing about our intentionality is like, we actually, even though, we're going back and forth on all these different time periods and phases of child.
Well, you're always very interested in the older children. And I'm always interested in talking about younger.
I'm actually going back to the young children.
Okay.
I remember, even though we knew the power of that tool, I remember specifically times that we self-inflicted suffering on ourselves because we wanted to build something in our kids. And what I mean by this is like traveling in the car. Like some parents, like the car means iPad on, period, or entertainment center on, like nonstop. There's just like, and they are all probably always having very peaceful car rides.
I'm a little jealous.
Yeah. But I remember, I don't know why, it was just something in us that when we would travel, it wasn't all the time. On long road trips, we definitely got the screens out. But I remember plenty of times that we were like, let's sing a song together. Let's play a game together. Let's get as much stuff in the car to draw on. I
got stickers
toys.
And
like,
just,
I don't know. It was just something in us. It's just that passion for finding balance. We're just like, I just don't want our kids to associate car ride with screen time. Like that to us, it just kind of rubbed us wrong. It's like a car ride could be a family experience if we wanted it to be. Now, did it have thresholds? Yeah. And there were times it was like, okay, meltdowns,
emergency.
Yeah. And I tell you what, it's really tough too whenever like they're still rear facing.
Yeah.
And
oh my gosh, yeah, I'm having
but
flashbacks
they're old enough.
right now.
But they're old enough to know they're missing out on seeing the world.
We had a mirror that we tried to reflect to.
Yeah.
We only had one iPad. And we've always only had one iPad.
Yeah.
Do you remember that?
Yeah.
And we had, so one of our girls was facing forward, but the other one was still rear facing. But we put a mirror to reflect the screen
Yeah.
into the mirror. I forgot about that.
Yeah. And we didn't have like our first minivan. We had an entertainment center. Our second,
but it was
we
just
didn't.
one. It was like a little pull down
Yeah,
DVD.
the little flip down thing. Yeah. So, hey, you brought up something that is actually something we were very strategic with too. We have purposely only had one family iPad to this day.
Yep.
Even though, man, iPads are like cheap now. You can get an iPad for $200 or whatever. And there's
It's called
so
the
many.
family iPad.
We call it the family iPad. And that's not just, well, let me say this. It is actually difficult because
It is.
if you compare it to what actually is the norm, and we're not like judging people for getting individual iPads. I'm just saying this is what we've done for specific reasons. Like people can do whatever they want, but like it's, most homes nowadays, most families nowadays, they have an iPad per kid or a tablet, Amazon Fire tablet or whatever. And we just felt like it would be good for kids to share and for it to be seen as like not mine. Mm-hmm. And even now, so, our kids are old enough, we can leave the house and we have a flip phone. It's called the family emergency flip phone. We don't call it, our oldest child's phone or whatever, even though she's the one using it most of the time because she's the oldest. We call it the family emergency flip phone. So branding is important for your kids.
Branding is very important.
Because family emergency flip phone.
Very clear.
Because sometimes they call us too much when they're like when they're fighting and they need
this
mediation.
is a very new stage for us, but yeah.
But like, so for the iPad, it's like, this is the family iPad. And so they have to set timers and share. And
they'll set like 30-minute timers. So they'll each get 30 minutes to play.
Little chunks.
Yeah, little
sometimes
chunks.
longer.
Yeah, it just depends.
And that really works well. And that was, we did that forever. That was it. We had TV and one iPad to share.
And they never played games on the iPad. The iPad was actually, if you remember, it was really only for long trips. We never
that's true. Or doctor's offices sometimes. Because we go to the doctor a lot with our middle child.
Yeah, but they don't play games. They actually just watch stuff.
Back then.
That's what I'm saying.
Now it's all about games.
Now, they like games, but
it's
managed.
Yeah, and we
have it really locked down too. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'll give a quick practical plug for just the iPad experience. Well, let me say this first of all. Believe it or not, it's actually very difficult to like manage content and internet access in today's world. Like devices and tech companies, they are designed to get you on the internet as fast as possible and get you engaging with addictive content. Like that's just the truth. And even if as a parent, like it took me a long time to figure out how to lock down that iPad, which I think is crazy.
It's crazy.
Now I will say this, and this is just for like new parents that don't know much about this. There are plenty of apps, like kid apps, where you could be like YouTube Kids or Spotify Kids or Amazon Kids or whatever. And that stuff's like curated content that, is supposedly safe. Another thing that's super particular about us, we actually don't use those. Mm-mm. And that has to do just with very picky things about us. Like take music, for example. Like we would rather like curate our kids' music ourselves to know what they're listening to. As Christians, we will put a lot of Christian music on there. And a lot of like the kid music apps, it'd be like there's all these kids bop songs. They're like really sexual but it's like,
or they actually do have like the Ariana Grande and like some of those pop stars on the kids.
Yeah. And there's this reason
they're just clean.
Yeah,
but it's like, are they really clean?
It's not just that. It's also like we're very cognizant of how kids can idolize celebrities, and we don't in our home, we don't put these celebrities on this big pedestal because kids can quickly just get like infatuated with that. And so anyway, this like gets into like so much nuance.
Maybe we should do a podcast episode about all these things.
There's so much.
People might think that we're like crazy.
Well, this is a huge topic that, and again, that's why this podcast sometimes is hard because we're trying to unbalance. Because it's like we're on one hand we're telling people, hey, relax, like it's not, you don't feel guilty for having your kid watch screens and forget what all these pediatricians are saying. Like there is like the reality of living life, but at the same time we're saying like, but the internet is like a dangerous place, and like kids want the screens, they want it all the time, and you have to be cognizant of how you manage that. So back to the practical tool about the iPad and why that's a helpful thing is you can put on, you can make apps completely locked down. So you could actually have it connected to the internet, but they can't get into like on our iPad, like I have to put in the parental control code for every single app. And so once I do,
it's actually a screen time thing.
Well, there's two of them. Yeah, the screen time. You use, that's why I was saying it's difficult actually to figure this out. It's actually the screen time feature in Apple is you put the screen time it's like 1 minute. Like after 1 minute of any app, it locks up without putting a code.
And then if they want to get on another app, they have to come to us and ask, and we put in the code that they don't know.
Yeah.
And
so my kids never get on YouTube or Spotify or anything, even if it's on the internet, they literally can't. And it's just super helpful. And to me, that's actually just, it fits us better than just giving them one of those kids' apps, and just let them it's just like, I don't even know what they're listening or watching or anything like that. And I'm sorry, I just don't trust like
YouTube to
some like
know,
20-year-old person curating this content on Spotify that I don't even know. It's just like weird. It's like, you got to, in my opinion, you should know what media your kids are consuming and stuff like that. So anyway, Apple iPad works really great for that. And honestly, it would just be crazy to imagine having a bunch more devices. And so there's actually just, Jessica and I like really value like simplicity, and like managing tons of devices would get crazy. That said, and one thing we just started this past Christmas is we bought all our kids MP3 players.
Mm-hmm. It took a long time to find these, by the way.
Yes. Another barrier.
Yeah.
It is a barrier. Like you can't just...
Because our kids just want to listen to music while they're putting away their laundry.
Yeah.
It's like understandable.
Yeah. And it is a massive barrier trying to find a device that's not just super open to, internet and everything. So we found just like this cheap China, I don't even know how to pronounce the brand. It's an MP3 player. It's Android based. And we have one Spotify account that's called, well, I'm not gonna say it has our dog's name in it. So it's not one of the girls' names. And so it's like the girls' account. And that's, again, there's like not this sense of just ownership. I've got my playlist, you got yours. It's just like we just pile all the girls' content on that one account, and then we download it to those MP3 players, and then we turn off the internet.
Yep.
And lock it
so they
down.
can listen to their music, but they have no internet to the MP3 player. And it's glitchy. It's glitchy as heck.
It is, dude.
Sometimes
yeah,
we
one
have
of them
to,
already broke. We had to get
so it's like, you might be thinking right now, wow, that's a lot. But we really just care about this. And I think with our oldest, she's only 11. So, here in the next, I don't know, few years, we'll kind of slowly transition. We're doing the whole wait until 8th thing. So especially for social media, but also for smartphones, waiting until, the one thing is that, WhatsApp, that's the one thing is, I know a lot of her friends who are older right now use WhatsApp groups to communicate. And that will be an interesting thing that I can see coming, where we're going to have to navigate how she can still communicate with her friends without having WhatsApp. There's going to be things that I know we're going to have to navigate as she gets older. But the good thing is that because she already knows mom and dad are the boss with this, and we set the rules, that I know it's going to be a good transition. Mm-hmm. And we're going to slowly over time release more and more, responsibility for her, as we should, as she becomes older and becomes a teenager. We don't want her to go into college without any, no experience with social media or no experience with managing her own tech. Like, we will eventually transition, but now's not that time.
Yeah.
Because she's young.
Well, and you have to put boundaries around kids. And then the older they get, you have to articulate the philosophy behind those values if you want your kids to be cognizant of values in their own life. And it really, it's just such a, it's just a fine line. I think it's similar to like sugar. Like sugar is addictive. Mm-hmm. Sugar is poison. Sugar is bad for you. In the textbook. But it's like, we all eat sugar and enjoy life sometimes. And it's like, come on, enjoy life. So to me, it's like TV is like TV and smartphones and all this stuff is it's all about balance. And it's like, it's like as a parent, you have to hold it in a way. It's like, okay, I know this is addictive. I know my kid's going to want it 24/7. How can I communicate how this can enrich their life and not dominate their life? And so there's some days, I mean, a lot of days actually, especially this time of year in the spring, it's a beautiful day. And we're like, man, let's keep the screens off, open the windows, go outside. We totally do the things I remember our parents would do, is like, get outside and do not come in. You know?
Don't come in until this time. Yeah.
We will set timers sometimes and watch them be bored, because that there actually is good research about how.
That's a whole other topic.
How boredom leads to more creativity and stuff. But anyway, what I was talking about with like sugar is, if you just pound it into kids that sugar is bad, like you will, it makes them even more infatuated with it.
It creates like an eating disorder, essentially.
Yeah, it can. And anything that you limit your kid with and like tell them like you can't have that, it automatically, it's human nature, they want it more. And I mean, we've seen our kids sneaking into the kitchen, late at night to get sweets or whatever, candy, and find it. And
but the thing is, we just don't buy it that often. And I think that's similar to the iPad. It's like, it's just not available.
Yeah. But what I'm getting at is that right now, as our kids are getting older, we're trying to build in them a philosophy about eating and about enjoying life, and of like why we sometimes get donuts, but it's, a special occasion, or why sometimes we might, enjoy a treat, but we don't like just make this huge deal. And the same thing with TV is like, we're telling our kids that like, man, like TV is awesome. Like movies are like, last night we watched, a movie as a family, and it was just like awesome, and we
had a lot of fun.
Yeah. And same thing with video games. Like we play video games together as a family sometimes. And so, but we're always just conscious about what are we building in them? What's the value system that we're teaching them? If you're teaching them always, it's just like, get off the screen. If it's all arbitrary and just like, get outside, get off the screen. They're not going to grow up being conscious of that. And then on the flip side, if it's just like TV's always on, then you're teaching them like what is normal. And in our home, that's just not normal. That's not how you and I operate. Because really, like as you operate as a family, it should be a microcosm how you operate as an adult. And like we have balance in our life. Like that's just who we are, and we try to build that in our kids. But it's fun sometimes. I said this earlier. We try not to make things predictable. On winter breaks, we might have a day where we're all just lazy. We binge like a bunch of Harry Potters or something like that. Like we show our kids that like, it's not bad to have a day where you're just, lounge around on the couch. And we do that sometimes just to prove a point to our kids that there's no formula for the perfect amount of restraint or the perfect amount of screen time. So that was just like this long thing to basically say, you've got to build values in your kids, not just teach them screen's bad, screen's good.
Yeah, agreed. All right. I don't think I have anything else to say about screens at this point. And I just want to reiterate, this is how we did it. And I hope you can appreciate that basically we have done all of it. We've, I've had our kids, watch TV whenever they were little. And then, we've put a lot of boundaries around it as well. I think the main thing is being intentional, not just allowing things just to kind of happen, or allowing the demand of your kid, wanting something, to dictate how you implement your philosophy on screens, because screens can become a pretty dominating feature of a family, if you're not intentional. And so intentionality is key.
It's always key. Have a good week.
Toodaloo. Thank you so much for listening today. It would mean so much to us if you left a review on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you heard this.
And let us know your thoughts on today's episode by leaving a comment on Spotify or YouTube, where you can also watch these episodes.